Every 2 years, the AFT presents the Women's Rights Award to a woman whose vision and courage has changed the game for other women. Now, we normally do this at our breakfast on the last day of the convention, but we really wanted to do this on the first day with all of us here. Because this year's recipient is that force in our politics, in our culture, and in our work that is one of the exceptional people for the millennia. She has worked not only to make democracy a more equal place for all people, she has worked in all ways such that when the roll call of history is taken, there is no doubt that Hillary Clinton's life and accomplishments will stand tall. In a lifetime of public service, Hillary, as we know her, has made clear her love of this country and its people. At the Children's Defense Fund, as First Lady, as my New York State Senator, as Secretary of State. This can be said with certainty. To those, and I don't know where she is, but I'm saying this to her, to those ignored and marginalized, you have shined a light with your attention and compassion. To those in despair or with problems, you have offered real solutions. And to those in need, you demonstrated your humanity and your empathy. But beyond all that, Hillary Clinton has given her heart and soul, which has been a beacon of hope to women and girls everywhere. And most notably, as anyone who has watched her for this last year and a half, she has done so with remarkable grace. At a time when our democracy is under assault and our politics has grown hateful and vile, Hillary Clinton has offered us a path forward always on the high road. She has fought back and keeps fighting back, not just for those of us who love her, but for everyone whose voices may not otherwise be heard. So, my friends, I want us to thank our friend for all she has done, for lifting up the work of educators and nurses, for understanding who we are as a community, for understanding what our communities need and what our nations need. It is an honor for me to present our Women's Rights Award to Hillary Clinton for everything she has done, for everything she will continue to do to fight for those who struggle and strive. Brothers and sisters, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Too, for all your adoring fans. Well, hey!
you, I've been back there listening to Randy, and I'm so exhausted I can barely stand here. That was an amazing speech that covered all of the important issues that not only the AFT faces, but our country. And I am so grateful to Randy. And I want to congratulate you on 10 years as president. It never gets old saying Madam President. Yeah. Randy has been a strong leader, a fearless advocate, and a wonderful friend. And I am grateful for our years of friendship. I want to thank Loretta Johnson and Mary Catherine Ricker and the rest of the Executive Council for this honor. It really means a lot to me. I'm delighted to be here with all of you. I have very fond memories of attending this convention 2 years ago in Minnesota. And I always love coming back to Pittsburgh. And so receiving this Women's Rights Award, I think, is not only an honor, but it imposes a continuing obligation. I've said for more years than I care to remember that advancing the rights of women and girls is the great unfinished business of the 21st century. And there are some days when it seems even more unfinished. But we cannot lose sight of how far we've come, nor how much we must continue to push forward. You know, when I was growing up, there were scholarships I couldn't get, colleges I couldn't attend, jobs I couldn't apply for just because I was a girl. And it wasn't so very long ago that classified ads were divided into help wanted-male and help wanted-female. And for the younger members, classified ads were sort of the Craigslist of the day. And I suspect, I may be pushing this, but I suspect I'm not the only person here who remembers playing girls' half-court basketball. They wouldn't let us run on the full court. Well, thankfully, girls not only play on the full court, they have more opportunities than ever to excel in sports and school and beyond. And many of you have seen that progress in your own lives, and you certainly see it in your work. And more than that, you have helped to make it possible. For every person here, you, through the AFT, have been on the front lines of some of the most urgent fights for our country's future. And as Randy just reminded all of us, we have to gear up again, because the challenges we face now are truly unlike any that we've seen for quite some time. She went through the litany of the fights we have waged, and we thought we had won. And now the pressures and forces against progress are stronger than ever. They control our government, and they are determined to have their way. Now, I am very grateful for your support during the 2016 campaign, and I'm even more grateful, however, that here and now you continue to stand up for the values we share. I believe with all my heart that the test of any society is how we treat the most vulnerable among us, particularly our youngest, our oldest, our people with disabilities. And right now, my friends, our country is failing that test. We have never seen such organized cruelty, disdain, and contempt for those values. People used to hide the way they felt. You know, they wouldn't come right out and say what they were thinking, which was good. That's part of the process of civilization. But boy, not today. Over the last 18 months, this administration has tried to rip away health coverage for millions and to end coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. They've given tax cuts to the wealthiest few, and they've paid for them on the backs of children and working families. They've gutted funding for public schools and universities, and they've rolled back protections against discrimination for students. And unimaginably, they have ripped children away from their parents. They have forced toddlers as young as 1-year-olds to appear in court. I find this beyond politics, the inhumanity of it, the disgrace, the indecency of it, should incite all of us to know that we are not those people. But look at what else they have done. They tried just recently to block a World Health Organization resolution intended to raise awareness about the importance of breastfeeding babies. And why do they do these things? Ideology, religion, corporate power. They have a lot of rationales and excuses. But the net result is that they are trying to rip the heart out of America. They want to turn us into transactional units where I get this and you get that, and it's like a man eat man, woman eat woman society. They want to turn us against each other. They want to divide and conquer. And I will tell you, I recently went back and reread those famous lines from Charles Dickens in A Tale of Two Cities. Now, we all know the beginning, don't we? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, but then it goes on. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Now, Dickens may have been writing about the years leading up to the French Revolution, but he might as well have been writing about this moment in America, because fundamental rights, civic virtue, even facts, reason, and evidence are under assault. But at the same time, we are seeing an unprecedented outpouring of grassroots activism and energy. And that is, as Randy said, what gives us hope. 2 years ago, I said that teachers and paraprofessionals and school-related personnel and nurses and public service employees of AFT have some of the hardest, most important jobs in the world. And since I said that, your jobs have only gotten tougher. But so have you. Since this new administration took office, AFT members have rallied to save affordable health care. You've spoken out on behalf of students who are dreamers, immigrants, and refugees. You've championed LGBT students and their families. And along with young people from Parkland, Florida, to Chicago, Illinois, to Santa Fe, Texas, you've become some of the most courageous and outspoken advocates for common sense gun safety measures. And you've sent a resounding message that despite the Supreme Court's wrongly decided Janus decision, teachers' unions are not going anywhere. Educators in every corner of our country are leading a national movement to stand up for public education, to stand with teachers and students. So the message that you're going to hear today and tomorrow and throughout this weekend is simple. Keep going, keep protesting, keep speaking out for public education, for safe communities, for an end to gun violence and bullying. Keep producing research and data to lift up and document the challenges facing our public schools. And in this era of so-called alternative facts, keep standing up for the truth, for evidence, for reason. And keep educating our next generation of informed citizens and critical thinkers. And yes, keep running for office, participating in government at every level, from school board to Congress, and most of all, keep standing up for an America where every child has a world-class education, where every child, no matter what zip code they live in, and no matter what their immigration status, is treated with dignity and given the chance to be all they can be in the future. But you know, you shouldn't have to do all of this alone. I mean, Randy's extraordinary speech today is not just for you, it should be for every American. You know public education is the most essential tool we have to lift families out of poverty, to create those ladders of opportunity, to prepare young people to compete and win in a global economy. So every American has a stake in what you do, whether in schools or hospitals or universities or anywhere else, whether they realize it or not. You need to be reaching out to your neighbors and talking to them and asking them to join you in fighting back against these attacks on families and defending the right to organize and bargain collectively. Because strong unions don't just help you, their members. They raise wages for all working families. And even more than the money and the benefits, they give dignity for the work that is done. So we need to keep up this fight to expand access from universal pre-K to tuition-free college. Because even in these challenging times, we are beginning to see some promising signs at the state and local level. We just have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep chasing them around the Capitol, Fred. And, right? And we also need to do more to repair our crumbling schools. You know, it's no coincidence that many of the schools where students are struggling to learn without heat or air conditioning, using 30-year-old textbooks, sitting in classrooms with mold and without enough desks to accommodate all the kids. These These buildings represent who we are as a country. And they also serve as vital hubs for other services like school breakfast and lunch, and after-school programs and ESL classes and thousands of school-based health clinics. The schools still are the center of so much of our community activity. And you know better than I that if we show disrespect for our schools, we're really showing disrespect for the children and the teachers and the paraprofessionals who are in those schools. And you know, we were promised an infrastructure program, weren't we? Last I checked, that hadn't gotten done. But I still support a big infrastructure program, including a $50 billion investment in public schools. And I hope that the Congress, when we have Democratic majorities next year, takes that up. And let me say a word about the nomination of Judge Cavanaugh to the Supreme Court. This nomination holds out the threat of devastating consequences for workers' rights, civil rights, LGBT rights, women's rights, including those to make our own health decisions. It is a blatant attempt by this administration to shift the balance of the court for decades and to reverse decades of progress. You know, I used to worry that they wanted to turn the clock back to the 1950s. Now I worry they want to turn it back to the 1850s. These will be urgent fights. The stakes could not be higher. Civil rights and workers' rights and everything that represents the progress we have made over more than 125 years to make our country freer and fairer, to pursue the dream of a more perfect union is at stake, not only for us, but for our children and our grandchildren. So these are important battles to wage and to win. But the most critical battle of all will be fought in the voting booths next November. The single best way to fight back against all of these threats and dangers to our democracy is to show up in record numbers. And you should take the theme of this conference with you. We care, we fight, we show up, we vote. And every single member of the AFT and every member of a family of an AFT member should be told they must vote this time, whether they've ever voted before. Tell them, please, that they will be voting for a vision of America where every child has the opportunity to live up to his or her God-given potential. You know, after the 2016 election, I kept running into people who would burst into tears, and often they would say to me, "I'm so sorry I didn't vote. I didn't think you needed me." I remember one time a mother literally dragged her 20-something-old daughter to see me. We were at a restaurant, and the mother said, tell her. You know, I have had some really interesting experiences. And I thought, whoa, this is going to be another one. And the young woman was just, you know, she was too embarrassed. She didn't want to say anything, and her mother spoke for her, and she said, "She didn't vote." And, you know, I looked at this young woman, and I said, you know, why didn't you vote? And she goes, you know, I just didn't think it mattered. I said, well, will you promise me that you will vote in every other election that ever happens for the rest of your life, please? Because elections have consequences. And especially in today's world, where we are in the midst of a struggle for our nation's heart and soul. I don't say that lightly. I don't say it to be dramatic. I say it because I believe it. And I'm here in part because I am grateful for the public schools, the educators, the health care that I had. I still remember Miss Taylor in first grade reading us Winnie the Pooh. I remember Mrs. King in sixth grade teaching us poems about nouns and verbs. And I remember my teachers in junior high and high school who challenged me, who forced me to think beyond my own horizons. So I'm grateful, but I'm worried. I am worried about whether we will recognize America. But we have a chance come November to make sure we get back on the right track. And you change lives every day. Whether you're caring for patients who have no one else, or you're supporting families that are struggling to keep body and soul together, or you're sparking a lifelong love of learning. So even when it's hard, even when it feels thankless, please know the differences you are making. And as you leave this convention and spend whatever time you have reflecting back on it, know that you are part of a union that makes a difference. You are part of a family, a big extended family that has the ability to reach out beyond your own communities, to make the case that has been made that we are in this struggle that we must win. And then keep caring, keep fighting, keep showing up, and keep voting. The future of America really depends upon what we do in November. If we take back one or both houses, which I pray we do, then we can start holding people accountable again the way they should be. The alternative is too grim to think about. We really only have one choice. And I know that the AFT will be on the front lines, doing everything you possibly can to pick the future that is best for you, your families, and most importantly, this country that we all love and care about. Thank you all very much.